Good morning. Oh my goodness, that's louder than I was expecting. Good morning and welcome. We are so happy to have you on this beautiful Easter morning. My name is tlewis and I serve as your Director of Engagement and Membership, and I would be happy to talk to anyone after service who would like to know more about us. You can also reach me through email at tlewis@unitytemple.org. We hope you have a meaningful experience.
Good morning and happy Easter. It's great to see familiar and new faces today. If we haven't met yet, my name is Matt Bruce. I use pronouns he, him, and I serve on our board of trustees. I have 3 things I'd like to share with you this morning. First, everyone is welcome to join us for some coffee, cookies, and fellowship immediately following the service in Unity House. And if you would like to join us for an activity during the week, those are listed in the back of the program and also in our e-beacon, which is our weekly email newsletter, which is sent on Fridays. Second, last month, our transitions team shared a draft of a relational covenant that we will be voting on as a congregation to adopt on Sunday, April 30th. In our board greeting today, I would like to lift up a portion of that draft, which says, "We hereby covenant to acknowledge and accept responsibility for good stewardship by joyfully committing our time, our talent, and our money in support of the work of our congregation, striving to be good stewards of all the congregation's resources, people, property, and finances." If you have any questions about this part of the draft or other parts of the draft, about it or what it means, or any other questions, please find our minister or a member of our transitions team to share your thoughts. And thirdly, I have a special announcement this morning. We are excited to let you know that we are currently finalizing the hire of our new developmental senior minister. We can't wait to make this introduction. So please look out for an email early this week. We are so glad that you are with us here today. We hope you find the service inspiring and meaningful. I invite you now to greet one another, both here in the sanctuary and online.
Sit on my hands. Our chalice later this morning is Simon, and Simon loves Oreos. Me too, Simon. Please join with me in the words of our chalice lighting. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open mind, the loving hearts, and the helping hands. We take care of the planet Earth and each other.
All stories have truth in them, regardless of whether they actually happened or not. The story that the great teacher known as Jesus died on the cross and was resurrected after 3 days may speak to us in different ways over the years. At times, perhaps it speaks of sacrifice. Other times, maybe it speaks of rebirth. Other times, it may speak to us of faith. And still other times, it might speak to us of coming back to life. Today, we come together to honor this old story, to listen to how it speaks to us, to explore what this story might mean to us today, what truth it might have to share with us at this time. We come together to scoop worth together, to rediscover the value of an old story. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life's journey, and wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 61 in the gray hymnal, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. Remain standing.
And join us in the words of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Thank you. You may be seated.
My name is Jay Cohen. I'm a member of the spiritual care team. We set aside time in every service to share the joys and sorrows of our lives. As a community where love is the doctrine of our congregation, sharing the joys and sorrows is one of the ways that we hold one another in love. If you ever have something you would like to be shared from the pulpit, feel free to write it in the book that sits right outside the sanctuary before the service, or you can write it after the service and we'll mention it next week. Or if you're online right now, feel free to put it into the live chat and we'll mention it next week. Also, please know that the spiritual care team is here for you, to listen, to be with people during times of joy and sorrow. On the path of life, when shadows fall, you need not walk alone. Here are the joys and sorrows that were shared this week. Betty Lau and TJ Scott share that their daughter Ellen got married to Shane. They had a lay-led wedding shared by one of their Unitarian Universalist friends, and Betty said that it was a spiritual and beautiful ceremony, and we send love to the whole family. Kristen Trusk and Byron Capek share that they're incredibly joyful to celebrate the third birthday of their twins. These two children have filled their hearts more than they ever thought was possible. The Widener family shares that their baby Wendy just turned 6 months old, and baby Wendy actually played baby Jesus in our Christmas pageant back in December. So Wendy's now 6 months old, and she's here today. So there are a few sorrows. Jay Van Cura shares that his wife Joyce passed away. They were married for 36 years, and she passed away in November. And at this holiday time, he's especially thinking about her. Please keep in mind the memory of Nell Bear. She was killed by an intoxicated driver back in January and just had her memorial service on April 1st. And just yesterday, Michael Brewer Davis's father passed away. You might remember that Nina, Michael's wife, her father passed away last month, and Michael's father passed away just yesterday. He was surrounded by family, and so we hold the whole Brewer Davis family in love. Aside from the items just shared, many of us are holding joys and sorrows in our hearts. What we'd like to do in every service is give people a chance to honor what's in their hearts, and we do that by taking, if you would, in a few minutes, to take a stone from up here and drop it into the water, and then we'll all be holding that in community together in the sanctuary of our hearts. So we will be singing, we would like to form the lines up to the corners of the table and then go from the aisle up this way and then out the center. So we will be singing Spirit of Life while we're doing that ceremony. let us enter together in a time of prayer and reflection. Spirit of life, source of all love, as we join together on this day when several spirit faith traditions are observing a holiday, let us renew our covenant to hold one another in love. There are those among us who have endured a recent loss. May their hope be uplifted again through the strength of this community. There are those among us who are wrestling with questions that seem to have no answer. May they find sanctuary through the connections in the community. There are those among us who've recently experienced a happiness or delight. May their pleasure be celebrated through the joy of this community. As we continue as a congregation that is welcoming, compassionate, and connected to one another, may we covenant to honor the many paths that have led us to be together, and may we always share our heart practices of kindness and gratitude. Blessed be. Amen.
If you are someone who likes to come close when you're listening to a story, I invite you to come and sit down on the floor near me. Look at these beautiful faces. You know what? The weather today has made me feel like celebrating. Do any of you feel like celebrating? You know, my dog is so happy because the grass is like so green and lush, and he's rolling around and around on the grass. Are you doing anything to celebrate spring? No? Okay. Well, you can if you want to. And it makes me happy because last weekend I was freezing, and now it's warm and sunny and green. And there's other celebrations that we're talking about this time of year. Anybody know of any other celebrations besides spring? Simon? Easter. Mm-hmm.
Passover.
And Passover? Yeah.
Today is Easter.
Today is Easter. I know. And Passover started on Wednesday night. That one lasts 8 days. And the thing about Easter and Passover and spring is that those are kind of celebrations that happen after some hard things happen. I don't know if you know the story of Passover, but when you celebrate Passover, you have a special meal called a Seder, and you tell this story that happened long ago about the Israelites when they were enslaved under a ruler named Pharaoh. And of course, they were enslaved, so they wanted to be free, and they called to God for help, and there were plagues and sickness and storm. Lots of horrible things happened before Pharaoh let the Israelites be free. So imagine, it was a pretty scary time, but then they got to be free. And that story happened a long time ago, but it's still important to tell because even today, not everybody is free to be who they are and believe what they believe. So it's important to keep remembering that, and that we need to always be hopeful and keep on working together so that everybody can be free. And today is also Easter, right? And does anybody know about the story of Easter? What happened? Well, Easter is this week kind of tells the story of the last days of Jesus' life. And Jesus was somebody that whose words are important to us because he talked about loving everybody, even your enemies, even the people you don't like, that we have to help take care of people. And lots of people listened to Jesus, and lots of people followed him. And there were people that thought that Jesus' ideas were dangerous. And they nailed him to a cross, and he died. And lots and lots of people were really, really sad. I mean, maybe you know somebody who you love very much who died, and you were super, super sad. And then what happened, Jesus was such an amazing person and said so many great things that it started to feel like he hadn't died at all. Those ideas were still there, and that love was still there, just like when somebody we care about is still with us in our love and in our ideas. And so that story is important to us because it's super important for us to keep remembering that love and caring for each other are great ideas and great ways to live. So all these stories are about celebrations that happen after bad things and hard things happen. And I want you to know that the hard things are not the end of the story, that there's always more. We keep on loving and hoping and helping each other and making the world a better place so everybody can be free to be who they are. That's what I hope that you remember about Easter and Passover and spring. And today, we are going to celebrate here at Unity Temple, and the Easter Bunny has arrived to help us celebrate. So I believe the bunny is going to open the door at the bottom of the stairs, and we're going to go and have some super fun times. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Thank you, choir. I cannot imagine a more fitting song on this beautiful Easter morning. I can't remember a day in Easter that was quite this gorgeous in a while. And the flowers and the sun, and it is just so wonderful to be together today. In our message for all ages, we heard some of the story of Easter. Looking at it a bit more deeply, we can piece together the details of the crucifixion from the various Christian Gospels, even though, like many stories, they don't entirely agree with one another. They tell us that Jesus was brought to the place of a skull to be crucified, and a man named Simon carried the cross for him. Jesus was crucified with 2 thieves with the charge of claiming to be King of the Jews. The gathered crowd mocked Jesus, and the soldiers divided his clothes. And when he died, he called out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Or, if you're reading a different version, "It is finished." A soldier pierced Jesus' side with a sword after his death, before his body was removed from the cross. Joseph of Arimathea requested the body from Pilate, which Joseph then placed in a new garden tomb. Of course, the story doesn't end there. As was foretold, Jesus was resurrected after 3 days. And as is the case with the crucifixion, the Gospels give various accounts of the resurrection. The Gospel of Matthew claims that Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to the tomb, and there was a great earthquake. An angel came, rolled the stone back, and sat on it, and told them that Jesus was not there. He showed them the empty tomb and then sent them forth to spread the good news. But before they'd gotten very far, Jesus appeared to them. The Gospel of Mark shares that the women were at the tomb in order to anoint the body of Jesus with spices. They were wondering how they were going to get into the tomb when they saw that the stone had already been rolled away. In this story, the angel was waiting for them inside the tomb. Again, Jesus appeared to the women first, but the male apostles didn't believe them until Jesus appeared to them as well. Some stories are as old as time. The Gospel of Luke follows Mark, except that there were 2 angels, and they appeared to the women just outside the tomb. And the Gospel of John doesn't even mention any angels at first. Mary Magdalene appeared at the tomb, saw that it was empty, and rushed to tell the others. When they all ran to the tomb to check it out, the angel appeared and told them not to fear. Jesus then appeared to Mary Magdalene, but she didn't recognize him at first. The Gospels also describe various appearances that Jesus made over the course of 40 days after his resurrection. There was an appearance to the apostles in an upper room where Thomas didn't actually believe that it was Jesus until Jesus invited Thomas to put his finger into the holes in Jesus' hands and his side. Jesus also appeared on the road to Emmaus, where again, he was not recognized by his own friends, the apostles, until well into the appearance. They'd been talking for a while. The resurrected Jesus also appeared beside the Sea of Galilee to encourage Peter to serve his followers. And Jesus' final appearance was when he ascended into heaven. This is the story as it is told in the Christian scriptures. And yet there are so many aspects of this story that remain unaddressed, so many questions that I still have at the end of this story. Like, what was it like for Jesus to awaken from the dead? Did he wake inside the tomb? What were those first moments of realization like for him? And then, once he figured out what was going on, how did he decide what to do next? What was it like for Jesus having returned from the dead? These questions are not in the scriptures. And yet, I believe that these questions address some of the core aspects of the resurrection that are so applicable to us today. So, what might the experience of Jesus' coming back to life have to teach us today? Like many Unitarian Universalists, understanding and truth for me comes from a variety of different places, certainly the Christian scriptures, but not only the Christian scriptures. In these specific questions about Jesus' experience of coming back to life, I find insight in a very different Savior story, a more contemporary one, the story of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I believe that when we look at the question of the experience of Jesus and his resurrection and compare it alongside of the experience of Buffy, we can learn some really important things about what it means to metaphorically come back to life. So for those of you who may not be aware, in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the prophecy of the Slayer states that into every generation a slayer is born. One girl in all the world, a chosen one. She alone will wield the strength and skill to fight the vampires, demons, and forces of darkness, to stop the spread of their evil and the swell of their numbers. She is the Slayer. Buffy Summers of Sunnydale, California, is the Slayer for our generation, and she saves the world time and time again. So often that even in the show itself, it becomes a richly exploited cliche. In the finale for the 5th season, there are spoilers here, but friends, this show is like 25 years old. So, in the finale of the 5th season, Buffy commits the ultimate sacrifice necessary to save the world by offering her life in the place of another's. And she dies. Like, for real this time. Her body is buried in a traditional grave. The start of season 6, the next season, presents a very sad state of the world. Unlike Jesus, who was only gone 3 days, Buffy has been gone for a while. It's been 5 months since she died. Life has gone on for the residents of Sunnydale. Just as the apostles began to fall apart at the death of Jesus after just 3 days, so too do Buffy's friends, known as the Scoobies. So too do they fall apart as they try to continue Buffy's mission without her. They need their leader, their guiding star, the one with the superpowers who held them all together. Demons are overrunning Sunnydale after the death of the Slayer, and the world is falling apart. So her friends do some magic to bring her back to life, thinking that she will just appear before them, magically unharmed, exactly the way they remember her. But the spell is interrupted, and so they don't think that it's worked, and they are forlorn. Meanwhile, a very confused Buffy awakens in her body, in the casket, in the ground. There is no angel to roll away the stone to let her out, but then the Gospels disagreed on that part anyway. Buffy awakens in the dark, scared and suffocating. Thanks to her special power, she is able to claw her way out of the grave. She wanders around a town that has been taken over by demons. She is confused and scared like a wild animal. When she appears to her friends, Buffy is not the same. Again, echoing the resurrection of Jesus, only one of the Scoobies, her dear friend Willow, even recognizes her. Buffy returns to the scene of her death, and Willow is afraid. Will Buffy try to sacrifice herself again? But she doesn't, and memories of her life return to her as she stands there confused and bewildered. Returning to the world of the living, Buffy now has to face both the mythical and the mundane realities of being alive. There are bills that have not been paid. Her beloved mentor has left town, and things have completely fallen apart in her absence, not to mention the demons taking over the town. Once again, it is Buffy's responsibility to set things right. It is a heavy burden. But Buffy has a secret that must come out, as they usually do. The secret is that she was in heaven before she was brought back. There was no pain, she said, no fear nor doubt, till they took me out. She sings in the musical episode, Once More with Feeling. Buffy finally admits to her friends that they took her out of heaven and brought her back to a world filled with pain and suffering, and they expected her to save them and the world again. I bet she wished that she could just ascend back into heaven the way Jesus had after only 40 days. While Buffy was in heaven for those 5 months, there is no definitive answer to what Jesus was supposed to be doing the 3 days that he was dead. Some traditions claim that his spirit was in heaven, but others claim that he went to hell to liberate the souls there. He didn't talk to his friends about it, so we don't really know. All right, so given all of this, what might the story of Buffy teach us about Jesus' coming back to life? And what might both these stories have to teach us today? First, this is not a story of rebirth. Rebirth implies something cyclical in nature, the flowers returning after the cold of spring or the cold of winter. Though there are many parallels between the story of Jesus and the god of paganism, whose life cycle is represented in the Wheel of the Year, on this point, they are very different. The pagan god is reborn as an infant to start a new life from scratch each spring, whereas when Jesus dies, he returns as an adult in a very unnatural manner. People around him have certain expectations, and he can't just start over. Metaphorically, the story of Jesus is not the story of rebirth that we may experience upon retirement or in a new relationship or in finding our vocation. That's rebirth. That's not coming back to life. Instead, resurrection, coming back to life, is more like emerging out of a deep depression, or our collective experience of reemergence from the pandemic. Resurrection comes after a death. We die to our old life, and when we come back, we still have our old life hanging over us. We may have been in the land of the dead for a short time or a long time. The longer we have gone, perhaps the more difficulty we have in coming back, as mundane realities demand our attention. Coming back to life is not clean and neat, but messy and confusing and overwhelming. Second, I think we can know that coming back to life is not easy. It took magic to bring Buffy back, and then she had to claw her way out of the grave confused. The Gospels disagree on what happened to Jesus, but at some point, the stone in front of the tomb is rolled back and Jesus is not there. Where is he? How did he emerge from the tomb? Was he struggling to remember who he was? Wondering why he came back? Like Buffy, did he return to the scene of his death, puzzled? This is what we do when we come back to life. We look back at what it was that killed us. We return again and again to that painful place, even as we are trying to climb out of it. Whether dealing with the death of a loved one, or awakening from depression, or emerging from some other kind of trauma, we don't just magically get up one day and are all better, as much as we may wish it were so. While there may be angels to help us, usually in the form of beloved families and friends, the best that they can do is support us in our process. They can't do it for us. Coming back to life is a struggle, and sometimes we have to claw our way out, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by excruciating day. The third thing we know about coming back to life is that it is painful. Painful. In the novel Beloved by Toni Morrison, Sethi is pregnant, a slave, and is running away from sweet home. She collapses on the side of the road, more than half dead. When all hope is about lost, she receives unexpected aid from a poor white girl named Amy. Amy helps Sethi to a lean-to and massages her damaged feet, telling Sethi to endure the pain because anything dead coming back to life hurts. Think about it. Whenever we have an injury, the healing process is irritating at best and painful at worst. How much more so when it's not just an injury, but a return to life? Think of the story of Jesus again for a moment. He had had a crown of thorns crushed into his head. He'd been nailed on a cross through his hands and feet. A sword had been thrust into his side. And when he came back, these wounds were not magically healed. His apostles were able to put their hands into them, to feel them. They weren't even scarred over. Though the Gospels don't talk about this part, imagine what it might have felt like to Jesus to have his friends touch his wounds in this way. Painful. For Buffy, she was ripped out of heaven and returned to a world with suffering and pain, and it was too much for her. So even though she was alive physically, she shut down emotionally. She wanted desperately to feel the fiery passion of life, but the fire just froze her. She looked into it and saw darkness. She was dead inside. It was not until she allowed herself to begin to feel the pain, to talk about and process her experience with her friends, that she began to come back to life emotionally. Coming back to life is a painful process. It happens in stages. It hurts, and we need help with it. Finally, when we come back to life, we are not the same person that we were before we died. Addicts in recovery know that they have to change who they were, all their habits. Adapting to the pandemic, we have been changed by the experience. We are not coming back exactly the same as we were. Someone who suffers a major health crisis may come back with a different lifestyle and maybe even physical changes that make them unrecognizable. Only Willow recognizes Buffy when she comes back initially. But Buffy's coming back process is long, and it means that her personality is virtually unrecognizable for an entire season of the show. She struggles as she tries to find her new self, her new place in the world. Jesus is also not recognized in two of the different narratives, and though he appears to his apostles multiple times, he's not described as hanging out with them anymore. He's different. He's set apart. We come back as different people, stronger maybe, but not always. Often confused as we try to find our new place in life. Sometimes we come back with an awareness of the sacredness of life, but not always. When Buffy finally embraces the pain, she begins to heal and finds deep strength and compassion in her role as the Slayer. For Jesus, in his appearances, he seemed more convinced than ever about his own role in God's story. He spoke less in parables and more in concrete urgencies. When we make it, when we survive the coming back to life process, we are not the same people we were when we died. We may have different priorities, different habits, a different understanding and experience of the meaning of life and of our place in it. This This, beloveds, is what the Easter story can teach us as we imagine the experience of the resurrection through Jesus' perspective. That there is a difference between coming back to life and rebirth. That coming back to life is not easy. That it is an excruciatingly painful process, and that it changes us. At least in these ways, this timeless story has something to teach us, even today. And you thought I was joking about Buffy.
Each week, Unity Temple gives our Sunday offering to an organization that aligns with our Unitarian Universalist values and is committed to bringing justice, compassion, and equity to the world. This week, as we contemplate coming back to life, our offering goes to an organization that sometimes helps people do just that, Sarah's Inn. You may donate to Sarah's Inn by placing cash or checks in the collection baskets that are being passed. If you are sitting in the back row of the section of pews, you will find the basket stored under the pew. Please pass the baskets, and someone will be at the back of the main floor of the sanctuary to collect all of the baskets. You can also give by sending a check to the Unity Temple office with Sarah's Inn on the memo line, or by following the instructions on your screen if you're watching this online after the service. Contributions must be postmarked by April 14th. We also now have a short video about Sarah's Inn. May what you give bring you joy.
Gratefully, thanks to Sarah's Inn, I'm here and I can tell you my story. Because I firmly believe without Sarah's Inn, I would not be alive. I believe my son would be in jail, and I believe my daughter would be living on the streets.
Nobody grows up wanting to end up in a relationship where there's violence. And so if it happens to you, what do you do about that? And what we do at Sarah's Inn is offer many alternatives. There are many ways that can help you if you are dealing with violence in a relationship. And any one of them can make a difference.
At Sarah's Inn, we serve about 16,000 people each year through all of our comprehensive programming. We serve about 2,000 adults and children through our intervention services, 8,000 youth in our prevention programming, and another 6,000 community members and professionals through our training and education program.
I believe that everybody deserves to live a life free from violence and free from fear.
It's very difficult, and it's very humbling, and it's very embarrassing to ask for help.
We still have that hotline. Call it. It will get easier after you take that first step.
I would like you now to join together in singing verses 1, 2, and 4 of hymn 268, Jesus Christ is Risen Today. The tune may sound familiar to you, and as we sing, I invite you to consider the story of the resurrection of Jesus to be a metaphor for our own capacity to come back to life and what it means for ourselves and for our loved ones. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Jesus Christ is risen today. Alleluia.
Wow. Please be seated. In this season, when we celebrate the cycle of rebirth, may we remember that some of us are in the process of coming back to life, a very different experience. We may be in pain, we may be struggling to find hope or make meaning, and we may not come out of it the same person we were going in. May this understanding give us compassion for ourselves and for others. Blessed be. And now please join me in the words of our chalice extinguishing. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Thank you for joining us. I hope this service fed your spirit. I am Amy Conrad, and my pronouns are she, her. At Unity Temple, I have found a faith community that speaks to needs that are so important right now: belonging and connection. I've also been privileged to experience joy and meaning through service to others. Our worship services and all the wonderful things that we accomplish are made possible by you, members and friends of this Unity Temple congregation. I ask you to join us in financially supporting our work. You may donate by using the QR code on your screen or by mailing a check to Unity Temple UU Congregation at 875 Lake Street, Oak Park, Illinois, 60301, or by giving through our website, unitytemple.org. Click on Donate at the top of the screen, then click on PayPal, and then choose Giving by Credit Card or your PayPal account. I am asking you to support all the wonderful work we do at Unity Temple, welcoming all, inspiring compassion, nurturing wonder, and serving community. You can learn more about how we carry out our mission on our website, unitytemple.org, and find out about our many support groups, faith and action teams, social groups, faith development groups, and music programs through the website, or by contacting Tina Lewis at tlewis@unitytemple.org. Many of our activities are available online for you. Thank you, and may your gift bring you joy.